It's easy to look around and notice everything wrong in your city. In this podcast by Every Neighborhood Partnership, join Grace and Andrew as they invite friends, activists, pastors, leaders, and city workers to discover what's good in the neighborhood. Join us for insightful conversations that will encourage you to see your city and its people in a new way.
Welcome to What's Good in the Neighborhood. On this episode, we actually take some time and hear from our EMP staff. And so we've had some really powerful conversations with leaders. And as EMP is trying to figure out how to take these concepts of wellness, of being Jesus-centered, we just wanted to give you a chance to hear from Gabrielle, Johnny, and Carl of how is EMP trying to live into this value, and them as leaders, like how have they gone through seasons of burnout or challenge, and what are the practices that they're trying to strengthen in their inner life. So we have an amazing team, and you hear from some really thoughtful humans about how EMP is trying to be a part of God's transformation in our city, and then the transformation that's happening in their own lives. So I know you'll enjoy it.
All right, well, welcome back. We are here with What's Good in the Neighborhood. My name's Grace.
And I'm Andrew.
What a treat we have today.
The A-team? Is that? I think that's what we're going here today.
Yeah,
Let's go.
We have our first returning guest as well.
We're
Carl
so excited
and
about it.
Gabrielle, our returning guest.
Yes.
First timer Johnny over there.
Oh, Johnny. So if you're a longtime listener of What's Good, you'll be like, oh my gosh, it's Gabrielle and Carl. They're back. We are rounding out our series here. We're at the end of soul care and leadership. And we thought that, man, we've been talking about some pretty ethereal concepts, maybe things that are maybe hard to put into practice right away. But we are a working nonprofit. We're here Monday through Friday. We have a team of almost 14 of us now. Yeah, we have a whole cool office, and everyone has their own working rhythm. And so we thought it would be really cool to chat with our team about what this actually looks like practically and on the ground as they're working. What does it mean to take care of their soul and then lead out of a place of health?
Yeah, and I think one of our values has, we have two staff values that I think have leaned into this over time. We clarified being Jesus-centered is important for us as an organization. And that means Jesus is the center as we move towards him. There's a lot of things we can argue about, a lot of ways we practice our faith that are different, but we want to move towards Jesus, right? And then that wellness is a value too. So I think this is kind of that intersection of you all get to hold us accountable. What does that look like? And then we are a diverse team. So the way people practice their faith is also really different. And so, and I think in my journey as a leader, it's really been an evolution to be move from Bible study prayer to contemplative spirituality to these embodied practices. And I'm always as we've talked about throughout the series, leaders got to go first. So as a staff, encouraging our team to go first. So yeah, I think it's a great time for all of us to just, man, what are we actually trying to do? And what does that look like? Where are we maybe personally finding some rhythms at work? And where also, do we need to grow? And then even as an organization, what's the next step that maybe this conversation could help us be more authentic in the way we're doing it? So
yeah. So I'd love for us to go round the horn, maybe say your name and your role here at ENP.
All right. Well, my name is Johnny Hernandez, and I am the Saturday Sports Coordinator for EMP.
My name is Gabrielle Pisano, and I'm the administrator here at EMP.
And Carl Andres Gurney Anaya, I am the Neighborhood Development Coordinator, which I think that's new to the podcast listeners. The last time I had a different job description.
Such is the nonprofit life.
Yeah.
Yes. So good. Well, thank you guys for being willing to come on and share a little bit of your own personal journeys through this topic with us. I would love to just jump right in, kind of into the deep end, but yeah, hopefully someone's brave enough to answer the question. But have you at work and in this space, have you ever experienced burnout? We do a lot of meaningful work here. A lot of our work has value. I've been saying this a lot during the series, but like nonprofit people are doers. We're doing stuff all the time and we want to make change. So as you've been trying to make change, working towards that, have you experienced burnout or like even a spiritual dryness during that time? And then what was that like for you? How did you navigate that?
Yeah, and it could be other periods of your life too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll share. I thought of a couple of things that some different seasons and kind of categories of what I would say were near burnout experiences for me. So the first type of category would be overextension, where serving and just having this expectation, both implicit and explicit, of like, you're serving the community, so you need to go above and beyond. These are the work hours, but really you should be serving and in relationship with the community all hours, and your home is an open space, and just invest all the time and needing to cultivate serving as a lifestyle in that way. So that was a near burnout experience for me of like, that's a little bit too much. I need to take a step back and create some boundaries, some limits there, recognize my limits. Another category was dealing with seasons of conflict, immense, relentless conflict with the team that I was in, and just an overall unhealthy work environment that had to ultimately be navigated by transitioning out of it. And then another category that's isn't quite burnout for me, but was like not great inner health, was when I was dealing with an emergency relief situation in my neighborhood. And I got really involved, and I loved the ministry part of that. But at the same time, there was a family crisis happening in my personal family. And I kind of shelved that for a while, compartmentalized of like, I need to deal with this situation in my ministry life first, and I'll come back to that family situation. And so there was like, some great energy from the good work that was happening in the community, but I missed the opportunity to care for my family really well during that time, and to really care for myself well during that time. So then later, a couple months later, of like having to deal with that at a later time, and then missing the moment with my family.
As you went back on those experiences, like what are some of the like ahas, or how do you recognize the signs of like, oh, yeah, I'm hitting that point, or like this, I got to realign our priorities and name those things?
Yeah, think about how I can just get really frantic really stressed, really frantic and frazzled in how I'm thinking about things or how I'm interacting with other people. And that's kind of some warning lights for me. Or if I'm trying to start a bunch of new projects or go in a bunch of new directions, of like, wait, have I dealt with what I need to deal with here first?
Yeah, my experience with it has been just seeing the effect on how it's been around, like the people that I come in contact with. Not necessarily myself. I haven't experienced burnout like at a large scale firsthand. I mean, I can get tired.
Johnny's our resident young man.
Yeah, 23. Haven't gone through so much life, but have seen a lot of people that have gone through that burnout, and parents who are leaders in the church, have family in ministry, and friends that are in ministry that work in those spaces. And yeah, just seeing the impact that it's had on them has made me hyper aware of like working now in this space over a little over a year and taking extra care of myself. And I think that working within those parameters and like within boundaries and things like that have been very helpful for me. But I can get a little bit too protective sometimes. So to like prevent that burnout, and yeah, I think that's been my experience with it.
It does seem like, I mean, my observation talking to older leaders and younger leaders, like we swing on pendulums, right? So like the old mentality was like, give yourself for others always. And then like a younger generation is a little more protective of boundaries, self-care. Like those words have latched on in a way that like they didn't exist 30 years ago.
Exactly.
You know, so like to like find that balance of like, when is it self-care? When is it selfish? Is probably like a thing.
And there's those like those aspects of both things, right? Of like taking too much time for yourself and then like it being like selfish, at least like within like my own like familiar like surroundings of like, you know, I want to prioritize like my parents, my family, because those are super important to me. But also, when do I need to step away and not let this not affect me? But.
Yeah, what I heard from both of you is that there's kind of conscious moments of recognizing crisis and responding to them, but there's like a tension that I know that I feel to respond and not just react to crises as they occur, right? Like the work that we do puts us in greater or lesser proximity to people in crisis, and like that will change depending on like the political environment, the neighborhood we're working in, the group of kids, like stuff that's going on changes all the time. So I feel like I need to be really attentive to how I'm functioning in that space as a mode of leadership. Like you're saying, Johnny, like you know how to recognize people who are leading outside of that kind of healthy equilibrium. And for me, I know that I really needed this. This sounds tragic to say, but I think in my story it is very true that burnout was the only way that I would learn to actually be healthy, because I needed to have a foundation and a bottom for which I could not get myself out of. It's almost like recovery language or addiction recovery language. Like you have to learn to surrender yourself to the higher power. In my case, through a really extreme, severe mental health crisis. I'm talking about multiple hospitalizations, psychosis, hallucination, thrown in the back of a police car, really horrible stuff that I don't ever want to experience again. And if I would talk to my younger self, I would be like, dude, like, you're not Jesus. You can't do this by yourself. But instead, out of that process, like on the other side, I'm so proud of myself for embracing the limitations that I have as a person, as a worker, and all the various kind of roles that I have. Like, I need medication to function. I need sleep every night. I need a healthy diet. I need exercise. Like those things would have sounded so like simple as to not take them seriously, but now outside and on the other side of that practice, I see like, no, I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for like literally feeling like following Jesus through that darkness became a new form of spirituality, where before I felt like I needed to actually like take the cross and suffer. And now it's like, no. There is someone else carrying this for me. I cannot do this with my own power. So for me, the ability to work with people who suffer, the ability to interact with residents or children in our schools and neighborhoods actually becomes, and this is language that I have from my religious practice, it becomes like a sacrament, which means that the grace of God, the stuff that God gives you that you cannot give yourself, that becomes apparent. And so for me, that's like a deep gift on the other side of burnout that you can't, that I couldn't have. In my ego is very powerful. I've been told my whole life that I'm very smart, and then to have my mind fall apart, the thing that like I've cherished my whole life as my greatest asset, that became the thing where now every day I wake up and I'm just like, man, those birds that I'm hearing are real birds, right? You know? Like that's a trip. And then I kind of come back to reality. I'm like, okay, yep, like we're good. God is good. Like I'm alive, you know? So for me, like the compartmentalization you mentioned, Gabrielle, is a big danger, because I can think of myself performing in these roles and then I can realize, no, has to be an openness. Like the compartments have to have breathing room in between them. That's also kind of an image that I have.
I really, really love that. And I'm sure that for anyone listening at some level, whatever, like you guys, I loved how the deep spectrum that you guys just embodied, because someone who's listening can identify somewhere in the middle of your stories, or they're listening to your story and going, yes, That's
I mean,
me.
I hope people have not been thrown in the back of cop cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And, or just that moment of like, I can't do this at this pace, at this level. I'm going to fall apart. Or I am falling apart.
Yeah.
I cannot do this anymore.
I'm listening to a podcast series from John Ortberg, and he's walking through the 12 steps, and then he's walking through like anxiety. And his thing over and over is like, the path to transformation and peace is through the anxiety, through the challenge. It's not by avoiding it. And I think, again, like this, your stories narrate like that the process of working through it is the journey and is the lesson. And if we don't like there are things we're going to safeguard, but also like life, it sucks. Life is hard and life is going to push us. But transformation happens as we move through it, and then our reflective leaders and learners. Grace, do you want to throw in on the question or like?
Yeah, well, I think before we like step into like actually E&P org and how we embody that here, I want to dive a little bit deeper into your guys' just personal walks with this, because we work with other people. Carl, you hearken to that, like working with residents, with kids, with families. And whether you're a nonprofit leader listening or you're in ministry, at some level, if you're leading, you've given your life away, or at least like your vision of life away to other people. So what does it look like for, as you give out, how do you cultivate that inner life? What does that look like for you guys?
So part of my outlook on reality is that like we as human beings are not solely abstracted thoughts and emotions and ideas, but we're also not just bags of water and flesh and bone. We're like a mysterious combination of the two. And like, you know, Christian tradition has this idea of the Trinity, which is not something you find in the Bible, but it's something that like had to be deduced from this really powerful and dynamic reality that Jesus showed, which is that like the Father and I are one. And the Son died on the cross and was raised by the Father. So those statements are true in kind of an overlapping way. And our ability to understand that is what it means to be human, because understanding it is not just a mental and knowledge thing. It actually has to be understood by participation. So for me, cultivating an inner life is cultivating action and practice at the same time. Both feed back into the other in the same way that like Jesus talks about everything that I have belongs to the Father, and everything the Father has been given to me. He talks about that while he's eating with his followers. Again, Catholic tradition has a very particular way of understanding that meal, which is the way that we are given as Jesus' followers to participate in that reality on a practical way. But I think as a model in terms of like doing that like we have ways that we serve, we break bread together, that actually is an act of service, sharing the food, but you also get to eat. You are physically eating and ingesting the calories. So if you're not also eating with the people you serve, then that becomes another compartmentalization. It becomes another schism. It becomes another withdrawal. And that kind of protection that you mentioned, Johnny, there's a temptation to like, okay, I don't want to go there. I don't want to open myself up so much to the other, because what if they take advantage of me? What if they ask too much of me? That is the space where Jesus has already walked, because they did take advantage of him. They took everything away from him. And the truth on the other side of that is like, it doesn't matter. They can take all there is because there's infinite to give. It's not just what's in this frame, you know? So I really draw deep comfort from that, because before it was like, okay, I have to literally give the amount within me until I'm dead, you know?
Isn't that so funny? As you're talking, I'm thinking about leaders that I know, yikes, that separate themselves from the people that they serve. Or like we've all been at a thing and everyone's eating and there's one person who's leading it or facilitating the room that's not going to eat. And you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay, guess they're not going to eat with us, you know? Like, and I think in the natural, that power structure that can start to be created is like, we can like fall like privy to that and be like, oh, well, okay, I guess that's what leadership is. I don't know.
The self-protective mechanism. It's a very understandable temptation for me, because like liberation theology tradition talks about the idea that like we are very good at lying to ourselves to the point of projecting those lies on the outside. So saying these hierarchies are normal and they're good and they're healthy, whereas the truth of like the reign of God, this thing that we walk in when we follow Jesus, is actually no. Those are stripped away. The difference and that difference of harm that we experience and we're afraid of is actually already taken care of. And so like that's really tough. It requires faith. But I really do understand leaders, because I've seen leaders do that. I've been that leader sometimes, I do understand and sympathize with it.
Yeah. Totally.
I love that, Carl. I mean, as you all can tell, Carl literally has on his desk, you can't see this, but he's got a systematic theology book. So this is our professor here. And I think you're giving us a vision, a framework, a mental model of thinking about that question. I don't know, Johnny, Gabrielle, do you have, you got a theological mental model you want to drop on us, or even just like practically, like what does it look like day to day?
Yeah, I think when I think about cultivating like my own inner life, I think about my community, I think about my family, and I think about my spiritual practices with Jesus, and the things that I've come to kind of start to learn after like these last 5 years. My walk with God was definitely like just following after what my parents just had modeled for me. And the church that I grew up in, up until like 4 or 5 years ago, kind of just started to take it for my own. And it makes me so happy to just really look back and see that the Lord just really expressed to me the importance of like community, and how much community has impacted me over this last 5 years, and how it's shaped me spiritually and cultivated like just my own inner life and my practices and the models around me that have been, just so important to me, like that I take now, and that people check up on me on, and are asking me like, hey, like, are you taking time for yourself? Are you having the quiet time in the morning? Having that accountability is super important and really big, because without that, and that's why I think community is just like very important to me, because without that community, I don't know if I would consistently practice these rhythms or these practices that I have for my own self that keep me spiritually and are consistently cultivating me in my relationship with God.
I love that you're connecting the community piece to individual spiritual practice, because I think that sometimes we make this question very like individualistic and be like, what are you doing in your own personal Jesus time?
Right.
And you're like, actually community is the base at which this stuff works.
Yeah.
And so it's really beautiful.
Yeah, kind of like what I was saying, without the community, I don't know if I would know about the practices like solitude or, seeing others model it, right? Kind of as we're talking about, and Andrew touching on it, you as a leader, you have to instill certain practices so that, us looking up, like, I don't want to say up, but like, as you being the leader.
I love my hierarchy here, everybody.
As you being the leader of this, the organization and being executive director, seeing that you're taking care of yourself and prioritizing, your well-being, and seeing the community that's around you, is really important to know that you have that basis, and then I'm allowed to step into that now, and EMP providing a space for us as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I am pretty introverted, so I need my time by myself to read, to journal, to pray, to just take a walk. But I'm also somewhat of an external processor, so I need friends and community to process with, to share and reflect back to me, what am I getting out of this? What's going on? Just help me talk through the things.
Yeah, that's so good. Let's move into EMP. Johnny kind of touched on it a little bit, but when you think about like our team, like what has it looked like for us? Like, and we can just like list some stuff off. Like what's have been some rhythms of soul care that we've implemented here at EMP that have like, as I say that, like are highlighting to you in your mind, or spiritual formation that we've practiced, and what's been the most life-giving for you?
I think the most life-giving thing for me has just been working for an organization. I mean, the last couple of jobs I've had were all retail-based of some sort, but the prioritization of our own well-being while working here has been the biggest imprint that has been left on me while working at EMP. And it's something that I'm like so grateful for, that I look back and see everything that just kind of, that were prioritized with, that the team that I work with prioritizes, and, you know, the little check-ins, you know, temperature checks that we do with one another, or, you know, hey, let's go take a walk because we've been inside all day, has just been so life-giving to know that there are places that do care about, you know, the workers and their own well-being. Because I feel like, or at least in the spaces that I've worked in, it's been clock in, clock out, no really sense of a relationship, you know, here are your tasks for the day, or here's what I want you to focus on, and then, you know, go home and kind of just decompress that on your own, you know, or figure that out on yourself, rather than like, you know, having actual space within the work to, you know, decompress that with, is that the right word, decompress? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Or unpack with, you know, your own individual coworkers, of being like, hey, actually, this is really tough for me. Or like, I'm in this season where, you know, I just can't handle X, Y, and Z. So do you think you know, you can help me out with this? So I think that's just been something that's been really impactful for my own self. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a culture of like co-laboring in at ENP, and I mean that in like a very Christian way, as an adjective, not as like an objective thing. For me, like the idea that people are sharing the work in a way that honors the dignity of the other person that they're working with. So there's a little bit of proactive feeling that I get of people who are asking to help me with projects, or something on my calendar, feeling not hesitant, like I'm burdening someone to like, oh, can you do this? I really struggled with that earlier. And I think a lot of people might feel the like similar feeling that, oh, like I can't ask another person to help do this thing because it's like, oh, I just don't want to ask them to do that. You know, I don't really feel that here. And I think that's really healthy, because I think that shared leadership and empowerment, in my brain, those are like Christian virtue ethics stuff. But here it's just kind of part of our practice that like we empower people that we work with to get better at doing what needs to be done. But we also share leadership in a way that honors the particularities and the assets and the gifts that are present around the table. I think specifically for me, as a Catholic, I don't feel tokenized, and I don't feel like I'm a curiosity, which is really nice, because I've been in spaces, including the graduate school that I have my degree from, where I was often asked ad nauseum to like explain Catholic stuff to people. And even though, you know, I make jokes about it, right? Like talking about the Eucharist at staff meeting or whatever, like that's fine. I think everybody needs to know about that. But like,
if it's just a thing, it's your thing.
Right. But that's a credit to people seeing me as Carl and not seeing me as the categorical. And I think that applied to the work we do helps us get away from these are numbers, these are deliverables for grants and stuff. Like, yes, that's true. That's always a part of the stuff. But like what motivates and continues to cultivate an attitude of reciprocity with our work is not that, is the people, is seeing the people for who they are. So again, personally, I felt that as a part of the staff team, and I try to reciprocate that as well to others.
I think that's been a gift to us as an organization, because if you really, and I think about it as our community, like demographically, I teach for FPU and I'll do classes, and most of the students are coming from a Catholic background. And then most are like, I'm Catholic, not Christian, right? And so there's a really divide even too. And like we're part of the same Jesus, and yet we feel so divided. And so I think like, yeah, your ability, even for our staff, to integrate their Catholic upbringing and also understand the context. But regardless of that, it's just like the gift of perspective. And so we do a devotional as we open our meetings. And I think the ability to hear from where people are at on the variety of faith experience and, their gifting is like one of the joys, because we all see the world through our sets of lenses, but together, like, they make a beautiful kaleidoscope, or I don't know what the image is there. Mosaic. There you go.
Glass window.
Yeah. Yes, stained glass window. Yeah, I love that, because I think that helps us see our city in a unique way.
Yes. When I first started at EMP, I came from another organization where it was, and my job was just very numbers based, and quick. Like, I had to make really quick decisions, really fast. It was all like, how successful can we be in how efficient amount of time? And I remember my first big project, I made goals for myself. So I hadn't hit those goals. And I'm sitting with Andrew in our one-on-one, and I'm like, okay, I'm at this number, but I should have been at this number, and da-da-da-da. And he literally looked at me and goes, what? I was like, what? This is what happened. He goes,
just so stressed out.
I was so stressed, but it was in that moment for me where I was like, oh, I don't have to internally run at this unmanageable pace that I left my whole job to leave for in this new space. I can leave that pace behind so that I can be healthier. And so I think that is a huge gift of EMP, is that, like you said, those things matter in their rightful place, and that what matters more to us are people, relationships. And we had an amazing episode with Christian and Samai a couple series back, where they're just relationships, especially with people in the community, there's no such thing as hit these 7 goals in this amount of time by this deadline. That doesn't exist. So why would we try to do that in our internal space when we don't even do that with our external work? So
something that Carl touched on, and is still a rhythm that I'm trying to get rid of, is being able and being okay to ask for help. I resonate a lot with that, because I feel in other spaces that I've been in, if I was asking for help, it just meant I was inadequate in those roles, or I didn't know what I was doing, or so for EMP to allow that, and just the team that I work with being super flexible and providing, even that I may not need that additional help all the time, just providing the space of saying hey, if there's anything you need to pass on or anything you need help with, it's been good to hear.
Yeah, and I think that jumps into a next question that we can kind of go around the horn on, is how do we continue to cultivate a culture here that it's safe to name doubt, or have the hard question, or fatigue, your own personal burnout, yeah, how do we create that space where it's okay to name the things that are personally hard for us, and then hard for us around the table, just in work? So what does that take here?
One of my favorite things about the way we have one-on-one set up is the check-in at the beginning of we don't need to touch on everything right now. Let's just see how we're doing. So when I would meet with Janessa, we would there'd be moments where we just talk, and it was good, and I'd never had a relationship with a superior in that way, where we're sharing what's going on in each other's lives, updates, things like that. And just starting, a one-on-one meeting with that is just kind of just very, I see as very important, and kind of just leading into the question of relationships are so important to be that need to be cultivated to have a space like this, where we're able to speak, about the hard things, or, to bring up certain things to one another, or to share just what we might be feeling or what we might be struggling with, or again, to have a space where we're able to call that out in one another, but in a loving and caring way, to know that hey, I see this and this isn't you, but I'm telling you this because I care, because I want just the best for you, and with the best intention.
Yeah, for me, it's really important to de-individualize whatever thing that I'm struggling with that I want to share. And what I mean by that is that I assume that if I'm struggling with fatigue or doubt or anxiety in a particular way, that these are not things that come from my individual self. These are things that occur in our reality as a consequence of structural conditions, of exploitation, of oppression. But it's also something that is a part of the grist of the struggle for liberation. And what I mean by that is that, like, I'm coming from a perspective that says that the struggle itself is generative and healthy and good and beautiful. So my ability to voice that fatigue and doubt is actually inviting others to struggle alongside me, to like
really good.
fight. You can think about it as spiritual combat. In the liberation theology tradition, it's called la lucha histórica por la liberación. So it's the struggle that takes place within history, that is unfolding from the beginning of time until the end of time. And the end the results of this, the like fruit of this, is the fruit of the Spirit. It's the love, the joy, the peace, the all of the good aspects of virtue that can grow in us. And there are three that I've really seen recently that I'm meditating on. So, like, I'm sorry to kind of, I don't think this is shoehorning it, but like, my church just lost a very beloved figure in Pope Francis, and I'm still definitely grieving that. But one of the things that he took personally was the idea that the outward face of God's people should be mercy. So mercy is not just something that we say. It is literally taking the scripture in Micah that says to do what God has asked of you, which is to love mercy, to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God, right? And I definitely saw that for all his issues and how he didn't make a lot of people happy. Pope Francis really took that seriously, actively, and as a model, like you're talking about, Johnny, of leadership, to say that like it is possible for a human being to like to enact this stuff in a particular way, right? The Pope is doing the Pope things. I'm not the Pope. Andrew's doing Andrew stuff. You're not Andrew. But at the same time, because we are like related to each other in this kind of ecosystem of work and struggle, like it can be really meaningful. So for me, that culture is created in the ability to like invite others into that process. And I'm really grateful that I feel like that's a part of what we do here.
I think too, not only practicing that in our like, you know, our workspaces, but that also kind of, again, going back to the aspect of like community and like where we operate in. I just had one of my buddies reach out to me and just saying like, oh, like I'm going through this, you know, just difficult time, and I just hate sitting in the mundane, and I just can't do it, and it's really hard. And you know, just showing up, being able to show up for him, you know, and being able to show up for community when it's needed. It's the same way that we can show up for, you know, one another here at EMP. And even just being able to, you know, pull just a little liturgy from, you know, something that I had read before in the same, you know, kind of situation that he's in, of just sitting and like, God, where are you? Why, you know, I can't, you know, but being able to share that liturgy because, you know, I had been sat in that and it's been shared with me. So now I'm able to pass it on to, you know, another individual and someone else that's in my community. And just being able to show up for him, and then him messaging me back and being like, that's literally what I'm going through, what I needed to hear. And I really appreciate it. And I just think I told him it's not me, that's God, it's Holy Spirit, showing up in our relationships. And like, I'm not the one that provided this, this was Jesus. And so, I think that when we take that into our work relationships, that just the check-ins and, making sure one another is good and, providing that space. I think providing the space is like the most important thing that we can do, at least within my own team. Yeah.
I loved a couple weeks ago it was over 100 days ago when we had the election, and Joyce made space at the table, just like, how are you feeling? What hurts? And us being able to name people that we know that will be directly affected. That was huge, because we could have easily just, made a couple
We got
jokes about it.
tasks.
Yeah,
Yep.
we got jokes about it. It's fine. Keep going. We're at a staff meeting. But like, no, we take the time and we stop and we lament and we grieve and we make space for that. In our own director's meeting yesterday, Andrew's like, starts the meeting like, what are you mad at? Just to like open it up, just because it's like we have like name if you're, and it's not even that you have to say the thing, it's you have the permission to say it, and no one is going to blink an eye. So I think that the safety that honesty brings in this space is really important. I think in its own way fights up against burnout, because then at least you have like places where you can say what you need to say.
I think it's like me stepping into this role, it's like there's so, and then just the moment we're in, like the challenges in our world, like the vision and what our city needs is so big. And like, I feel like you were talking about, Carl, I feel the weight from like a little conversation where I watch a mom scream at a kid and be abusive and know they're living in the car right there that I see at a school that we're at. Like that real pain to like all these other issues, to hold that, to know the brokenness of our politics and our roads. And, EMP's breadth is so wide that to feel that, we also have to fundraise, we have to write grants, we have to meet deliverables and objectives. And yet we also want to do this as humans. And so that like challenge to me is just ever so present, where it's like, how do I last in 20 years? Like when in our conversation with Dave on Soul Care, he said, like, what's your vision? And it's like, I want to finish this work and like my wife loved me, my kids love me, I got deep community, like it's very basic stuff. But like if I give my life solely to this work and that's my only thing, I will die. Because it'll never be enough. We'll never raise the money we need. It's gonna eat me. And then the stress of leading is like, from my vantage point, is very hard. But to name it and to be like, I don't have to carry this myself. And then as I name it, everybody around me is like, we're with you. Or like, yes, that's hard. And we're glad you're here. I'm like, okay. I am not carrying this individually. I'm not unique in my struggle as well. And I think there is that like lie that happens that like, oh, your problems are so unique to you. And as I voice them, they're like, oh, you have a lot of people who care and will support you in that, Yeah.
It's so good. Let's round out our time together with one more question. When you think about our friends who work in nonprofit work or community-based organizations that are also trying to hit all the things that we're trying to touch on as well, what do you say to somebody who is doing that good work but neglecting their inner life? What would you say to encourage them?
In order to give a full yes to something, you have to say no to some things. So if you are someone who has trouble saying no to things, think about saying no to that thing as being able to say yes to something. Think about what your priorities are, what you want to be able to give the full and complete yes to.
Yeah, for me, I would find a more kind way to say this, but I question the goodness of the work with that trade-off. And what I mean by that is that if you are neglecting your inner life to the point of, neglect is a form of violence. It is a form of abuse, and that is not good. And there can be no, because again, my Trinitarian outlook on the human being, there can be no pact between the good and the bad in that inflow outflow. It has to be good or it has to be bad. And the bad is when it's turned in on self. In other words, the person is choosing self over the other, over God or whatever. And so in a weird way, if you're neglecting yourself, you're really just choosing yourself, because you're choosing yourself in a negative way by not focusing on what needs to be done in the holistic sense. So I would in kindness be able, because that does often describe my younger days, and I would be able to say that to myself, I think. I would hope.
think when I come in contact with, people that work for different organizations, sometimes I can feel it like off of them. And it's like, like you're being overworked, or, you're juggling a lot. And I think the best thing that I can do to them is just be a beacon of light, I guess, and to just show them hey, it's okay to slow down, even though in their mind it'd be like, I have to finish X, Y, and Z, but just show them the love of Christ, that Christ showed, his people and while he was here, and be that light for them, that they may not be, they could be under 10 pounds of work that they can be just facing. And so when I come into contact with those people that, I could be sensing that off of them or feeling that off of that, asking them what's going on, and letting them know that, if they need anything, reach out, or being even just simply just asking what is something that you need prayer for in this moment. Can be as simple as that. And, that can spark a conversation of just, a really good, solid conversation.
The gift of helping them step back.
Yes.
And see it.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I hear you saying is sometimes folks can't see how, and I this is how I am. I can't see how I show up until I watch other people and they're like, oh, Andrew's coming in hot today. I'm like, okay, I'm coming in hot. Yeah. The gift of somebody pushing.
Yeah.
Hey, Grace. It's great. I've been known to do it.
No, I was thinking of myself because I know I radiate.
Yeah.
The on.
But no, what you're saying is the gift of helping folks see themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't mean to get all soppy or sappy, but
I was feeling the same.
I know, but I'm just very grateful to co-labor alongside of you guys in the most Christian sense of the word. It is an absolute joy and pleasure, and grateful that we can look each other in the eye and go, yeah, I'm not doing good today. I'm going to go home, and have the permission to be like, please go home. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think it's a gift to be able to name these things and talk about these things, and then again, like we just said, reflect those to each other. So, in moments of honest conversation, I think many of you have said, "Oh, hey, I've noticed this," or "thought about this," or just the conversations that I get into a meeting and I'm tasked, and then everybody's throwing out things that I think help us reorient. So the collective reorienting that we get to do as we shape this organization, it's not just a me thing, it's a us thing. And I think I feel that, and I hope that continues, that, this may be a place of transformation that is internal, and then the transformation, just flows out into the community. The way we show up matters, and the way we show up affects others. So thanks for being those types of humans.
Thank you.
Thankful for y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to find out more about EMP, you can visit us at everyneighborhood.org or follow us at EMP Fresno. Every Neighborhood Partnership and this podcast exists to activate, equip, mobilize, and transform here in Fresno and beyond. If you liked what you've heard, please share and review what's good in the neighborhood wherever you listen. We'll see you next time.